All right, everybody. We are absolutely honored to be joined by a former NFL quarterback and the creator of the QB School on YouTube, as well as Patreon, and of course, his own website, theqbschool.com. JT O'Sullivan is joining us. JT, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. We both greatly appreciate it. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk some ball.
Absolutely. I've been following your YouTube channel for some time now. And when we wanted to start getting invested in film study, I'm like, man, I really want to talk to this. I really want to talk with you. You've had a busy high school coaching season. And I'm just glad we got to connect after the holidays. Hope those were all good for you.
Yeah. No, fall felt like a blur and slow motion all at the same time. So sure, just same as everybody else going through this craziness. But yeah, it feels good to settle into a new year. Happy holidays. Happy New Year to y'all. And let's get it going. Finish this thing off right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are a first-time guest on the show, so we got to run you through the ringer just a little bit. Just some questions, so our listeners who may not be familiar with you just kind of get to know you on a personal level. First and foremost, and this could be, I don't know if you have one now, but maybe before you were in the National Football League, your favorite NFL team.
I grew up going to 49er training camp. So definitely the 49ers. Was heartbroken when they moved from Rockland to training camp down in Stockton, which is more a little Central Valley out here in California. So definitely grew up a 49er fan. But first game I ever went to was still living in LA at the time, went to a Raiders Denver game in the Coliseum. So that was certainly eye-opening as far as language you can hear. I still remember vividly sitting behind someone with a Denver Bronco hat on, and it had a pile of fake dog poop on the top of it. And when I'm talking about them yelling shithead at this cat all game and me just being fascinated with it being so funny in elementary school, it was quite the process. So any West Coast California team is my background.
I gotcha. Okay, very cool. Yeah, it's an exciting way to NFL fans are wonderful, aren't they?
Raider fans.
Yeah, that's true too. Your earliest football fan memory.
Oh, it's a good one. I definitely remember watching like NBC Notre Dame games. It's probably like my first this could be fun to do, like Tony Rice, late 80s Notre Dame, the Rocket, more than anything else. And then just like front yard football, I think was my kind of experience with ball, where I remember being like, oh, this is a lot of fun, whether it's, with the neighborhood, whether it's with my pops, whatever it is, just spinning it around.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And lastly, just some of your favorite players of all time, maybe just people who inspired you to, to get involved, as much as you have, or just people you just love to watch.
I would say once I start getting into it, like in a little bit more of a significant approach to ball, I think I fell in love with guys like Steve Young. Rich Gannon was probably right when he was playing at his peak, was probably where I was most interested in kind of learning as much as I possibly could. So tried to not necessarily pattern myself after those guys, but just enjoyed watching those guys operate with kind of the precision that they operate at from the quarterback back in the day, kind of before it was cool to be so quarterback friendly. I felt like those guys were kind of the trendsetters and where the league is evolved towards.
Absolutely. Some absolute great names. Love to hear it. But yeah, so you created this QB school, the QB school brand, within the last few years, right? I believe 2018, you got it all fired up. If I'm not mistaken. What made you decide to kind of, I guess give back a little bit to, football players, aspiring football players, football coaches, football fans? What was your decision that made you want to do that? Because I've learned so much from this channel. It's really fun. I love the Turkey Day playbook video. That was one of my favorite ones. I haven't had a chance to use it quite yet, but I was just like, man, this is great stuff. And you do such a good job just breaking it down so anybody can understand it.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I do. The genesis of it was more, I just got done with grad school and went from writing a dissertation to having this time on my hands. And I had kind of taken a pseudo sabbatical from ball going back to grad school, and didn't really watch it or care about it or pay attention to it. And so was not necessarily missing it per se, but just seeing, hey, do I want to potentially get back into it in some medium, whether it's coaching, whether it's broadcasting, whether it's, insert anything in there. And so I was realizing that, geez, I'm watching YouTube a lot, like more than anything else. And my brother was in this podcast space. And so he was kind of like, think about doing a podcast, and maybe you could do video. And I'm like, well, I dig YouTube, and there's no, the other part about it was I didn't want to do something like, I feel like in the broadcast world, there's always the next person retiring, they're just like playing, like there's another draft, they're coming for your job. They're doing this. Like, I didn't want to be beholden to a contract or to any sort of affiliation to whatever that world looks like. And so that was never really an option. And I didn't want to move anymore and do the real coaching thing that you have to do to willing to move up. You got to be able to move around the country just like you're playing. So it was basically a culmination of all those things to me looking around the landscape of football and being like, hey, I think there's a niche here that I think people would be interested in. And basically, I just tried to create the channel that I wish existed when I was trying to learn as much ball as I possibly could. And so I always felt like there was information behind the curtain that these, NFL gurus, whatever, insert any word you want to talk about the quarterback position, but really football in general, just through the lens of quarterback. And I just wanted to create that. And I thought that I could. And I got a lot of help from my brother, who's a cinematographer and who's in the content creation space. And so we basically just tried this thing, and it has evolved into a pretty fun enterprise for me, and now kind of branched off to a bunch of different things, whether it's the Patreon, whether it's courses. There's a bunch of different ways to get the information, but I honestly have just a blast doing it. I get to do football about whatever I want, whenever I want. And it's fun to be part of a little community too, where you feel like you are giving back and making an impact, because football did give me a lot. It really was a trampoline in my life as far as what I'm able to do. And I do feel some level of responsibility to give back to the game, whether it's coaching, whether it's this or whatever. And so it's just been a perfect medium for me as a blend, educator, technology, media, all the things that I enjoy into one little sphere of ball.
No, watching your videos, I could tell, like, I could just feel like the love you have for the game and the passion for it. You do seem at ease. You seem really comfortable. The quality of the video is fantastic. And like I said before, you do a really nice job of essentially dumbing things down for people like, myself and Brian here to really just understand. We're fans. We know where we stand in the grand spectrum of things. And it's really, really cool that, a guy who's been there, who's earned a paycheck in the National Football League, and has done so much in the world of football, cares enough to do that. So I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And I'm sure there's millions that feel that way, that watch your channel.
Well, I appreciate it. I would challenge you, push back a little bit. I don't feel like I necessarily dumb it down. I feel like I try to pull it apart enough that it can make sense to someone who doesn't do it, because, if you were to just come to the channel and never watch any part of it, some of it would probably be heavy jargon.
That's fair.
But if you get a chance to invest in a little bit of the terminology and how we kind of talk about the position, I think it just tried to some element of just elevating the discourse around the position, and not just saying like, he's got a cannon of an arm, or, just go make a play, things like that, that there is an element of that. But there is also a lot of nuance and a lot of detail that, for whatever reason, is tough to translate through, a live football broadcast or a studio show. I can go as long as I want about whatever I want and go down a rabbit hole, that people who are, tethered to different time constraints don't necessarily have the capacity to do.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a fair point. I didn't necessarily dumb it down, but no, I get what you're saying. Just explaining it, like the terminology. You got me good. The terminology. It is really cool to kind of have a grasp of the terminology and listen to broadcasts, and here are certain things to pick up on it. But I'm myself. Brian kind of got me into to film study. We started trying to hone in on an episode, at least of our show every week, on doing it. Brian, would you say? Why did you want to get into film study? Like, what was your original intention for all of this?
The game outgrew me. I was never gifted with speed. I was never gifted with the size. I was never gifted with the region even to even pursue football, and it just wasn't in the book for me, right? That wasn't where I was going with my life, but it never stopped being a passion. And so I was always just, on the side watching it, and I was like, there's got to be a way that I can get a better grasp of what I'm actually watching, and how all 11 players work together and how a play is successful. And that's really what kind of started pushing me. And then I got into college more, and then the bigger the passion I got in college is like, wow, there's really so many different styles of football. And I was like, all right, well, there's got to be a commonality to all this. And that's when I started finding all the YouTube stuff. And there's so many people that have offered, their advice or input on how to look at film and things like that. And definitely your channel is one that has made it more commonplace, more digestible for a person who, didn't get to go. I mean, I didn't get to play high school. I wasn't good enough to play, JV. That's how bad I was, So, but I know I always felt like Rudy, where I was the guy that like wanted it. I had the heart for it, but I never had the gifts for it. But so that's kind of what driven me to want to learn from people, and especially people like you that pursued it all the way up to the collegiate level, and then were lucky enough to be selected in the draft and have an opportunity to be in the league as long as you were. Those are the things that I think that people don't realize that they're actually accessible for us. And you can get to a point where no, you're not 100% positive of what you're seeing, but you can get familiar with it enough that in any given Sunday, watching with your friends, you feel like you might be a little bit smarter than the rest of the guys in the room. And that's all we got going for us right now. I mean, you're just going to be the smartest guy with the beer in his hand. That's all.
That's a good guy to be. I mean, the other part of it for me is, I think it does make watching it better, if that makes sense. Like, even if you're not necessarily like showcasing, like, hey, you got this little nugget of knowledge you can drop on your friends, which is fun in and of itself, but just the enjoyment of understanding what's going on with even more than, the all 22, but the situational football, the games within the games. But so much of football in reality is really at the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
And, you just can't see it from the broadcast. You can't see it because most people just watch the ball, but when you really pull these things apart and when you analyze stuff, really all analyzing or explaining in great detail is just pulling things apart to their absolute bare bones and then trying to put them back together in a way that you can make sense of easily. And so to me, it's hard to do from a broadcast. But if you can know what to watch and you're not always centered on the ball, and you can have these little intricate matchups, like what exactly is going on at the line of scrimmage or on the back end with the coverage and the shell and the combinations, all those types of things, to me, make it more enjoyable than just kind of watching a bouncing ball like you're watching tennis, just a different element of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you listed a lot of, detailed things, but like, aside from that, like, why? So if somebody went up, why should I understand film study, or why should I try to grasp the concept of film study? What would you tell them? What exactly would you explain to them?
Well, I mean, I would want to know a little bit about why they're interested in it. Are they interested in it because they're trying to coach it, teach it,
Right.
better understand it, just be a fan, have a better understanding of ball? Because I think all those things can encompass the next steps. But if it is, all of the above, we'll say, to me, it is about catching on with, at least, you don't have to have, I always shy away from the term like mentor, but at least resources that are available that you can either ping things off or gather more information to give yourself a start. Don't start at ground zero and just be like, hey, I'm just going to watch this all 22 and we're going to figure out what all these people are doing and I'll come up with my own language. Most of this stuff has already been done before. There's a bunch of different ways to say it. And so if you can just gather as much information as possible from a bunch of different sources and realize there's not one way to do it. That's the other part of thing I think about football is, you might have grown up in one town that ran the same system, same youth program, high school program. Then you went to one college and got fortunate enough to play it there. Well, then all of a sudden you realize there's a bunch of different ways to call the same exact plays. And if you understand the baseline of ball, whether it's run game, pass protection, coverage, fronts, fits, there's only so many things going on in football, but once you have a baseline understanding, you can really dive into the details of what's the most interesting part for you. whether that's the defensive side of the ball, whether it's pressure, whether it's coverage, whether it's run game, whether it's pass protection, whether it's quarterback play. There's so many deep rabbit holes to go down. And then you put all those together and you realize that, you all of a sudden have a deep understanding of what's going on. But that's the other thing about it to a certain extent. You've touched on it a little bit kind of sideways, but this idea being that if you're interested in learning more, where the hell do you go? There's not necessarily like a book that teaches you how to film study. Now, there are books that will go into detail about scouting, and there's probably a book about film study. I don't even know. But the idea being that, like, even if there was, the game changes so fast that you don't necessarily, have all the answers in one resource. And so you got to ping all these things together to kind of come up with what works for you. And, for me, fortunate enough I was just around a number of coaches that by pseudo osmosis, you get a bunch of different viewpoints and got a chance to learn a bunch of offenses. But I do think that you've already touched on it. There's a number of resources just free on YouTube where you can hear different people talk about different things. There's clinics available now. You can watch these guys who teach this and coach this at the highest level possible, go out and clinic about the coverages and plays, concepts that they run. And so just getting as much quality information as possible and then filtering out to figure out exactly what works for you.
Yeah, I definitely found even on Twitter, there's a bunch of very good follows on Twitter where there's a defensive line technique Twitter handle where all they show is different clips of college players and practice reps and how to practice a drill and a specific move as an edge rusher and things like that. So it's evolving. It seems it's growing every year. It seems like with the digital age, everything's more accessible. And, obviously we understand this recording this episode with you that even, this without the digital age, this is impossible. We can't reach out and have one-on-one conversation with a, former NFL veteran who honestly, the way you paved your career and the way you just kept sticking at it and everything is actually the thing that I want to talk about the most is you started up a teaching clinic in a way with your YouTube channel. Does that stem from your way that you kind of bounced around the league and your passion for the game? And you almost became kind of probably like a mentor, I would imagine, as you moved along from team to team. It's like you're able to move on to a new guy and pass on that knowledge, I would imagine.
Well, I was definitely the new kid at school a lot. I don't know if I was ever necessarily the mentor for it, but there are definitely pieces of how I cobbled together that playing career that translate into the channel. And I think one of the main reasons is just the ability to eventually, I was around enough coaches that broke down football to the absolute bare essentials that could translate to any playbook. And so once you learn football from the core essentials, whether that's, 5-person pass protection, 6-person pass protection, 7-person pass protection, and all the different iterations within those schemes, there's only so many different ways to do it. And so once you understand the principles of that, it doesn't matter what you call it. So I could go into an offense and apply my baseline understanding of those pass pro concepts and filter their language and be able to play it really quickly. And I think that definitely helped me catch on. If you do that across the entire spectrum of the scheme of the book, when you hear guys come into the building and catch on quickly, I think that the faster you can do that, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I certainly had a lot of experience with it. I think the other part that translates specifically for me in the digital content stuff is there is a level of resilience that comes from like getting publicly fired that often. You understand exactly what you're trying to do. I always knew, hey, I want to suck the absolute bone marrow out of this playing career because once it's over, it's over. I'm not going to come back in 5 years and try it again. And so I wanted to get the absolute most out of it. And so I really was intentional with putting all my focused effort into maximizing that experience. And that same approach is what I've tried to do with the channel. And there's certainly, y'all are in the content creation business to a certain extent. There's nothing worse than creating stuff and feeling like no one's, watching, listening, enjoying, giving feedback. It's not resonating, all of the above. And so I was really able to kind of be a little resilient that first year, especially to be like fine tune my process, to be like, hey, I'm going to give myself this amount of time to see what this turns into. And so both those elements are really, transferable to what I'm doing now with the channel.
Absolutely. Now, when did film study like really start clicking for you? Like, when did you like? I mean, you have to do it throughout college, and the pros, of course. But when did it start clicking for you to maybe invest a little extra time into that film study and prep? Was it with a certain coach, a certain team? Was there anything specific in that?
Well, I probably have a unique journey with what I think you're clumping into, like film study holistically.
Right.
For me, film study, encompasses a number of different elements. It comes from the learning part, like how you need to learn your own system. So you have to, when you come into a new place, like say, for instance, when I went to college, I remember sitting down with my position coach and watching the film of that team so I could learn the scheme and master the scheme. And so that's definitely film study. I think most people refer to film study as like getting ready for your opponent,
Right.
or if you're in the personnel world, like scouting personnel. And so I kind of went full circle from learning through film to then preparing to play through film. Obviously the preparation as far as situational football, the tendencies of your opponent, etc., probably went too far in that world where you potentially are watching maybe too much film,
Okay.
getting kind of a paralysis by analysis type mindset. And then probably towards the middle of my career found a sweet spot being basically whenever I was watching film and I was playing, I went through kind of a full week cycle of how I wanted to do it. And so there were definitely parts early in the week where I just wanted to get a feel for the opponent. And I still take this approach when I'm coaching. I still early want to get an overarching feel for what the opponent is, personnel, identity, what I think that their base looks are in, whatever situational football they want to start. Like, what's their day one install look like? And then I'll get into the actual cut ups, like specific situational football, first and second down, third down, red zone, fourth down, situational ball, those types of things, film study. And then finally, at the end of the week, I want to go as fast as possible through the film. So I'll go back and watch the whole game, and I'll watch it at really essentially fast forward tempo, but without watching the snap. So I'll try to identify the defense up until the snap. If I need to confirm it post snap, I'll fast forward through, but I'm not watching the ball. I'm not watching the play. I don't care what the other offense is doing. I'm only trying to get the pattern recognition in my head, because, it doesn't matter how great my film study is if I'm taking all these notes and I've got this grandiose plan. Well, when I'm out there playing, all I have is me, in my helmet and what's in my head. So it doesn't matter if I took a bunch of notes. If I can't retain the information, I'm just trying to figure out what I can take to the field to play well. And it's really the same way coaching. It's, hey, we're watching all this film. We've got all these notes. We've got a great plan. But what am I going to remember at halftime when none of this is working? What can we do to make an adjustment for us to go out there and be successful? And so it's that fine sweet spot between definitely being prepared, but also building in the adaptation to know that I'm going to be out there on the sideline or on the field, with my thoughts and my processing capacity, and to be able to hold that as the number one kind of key element.
So when you're watching film, what's the commonality that you notice the most? Especially, let's just talk professionally. So in the NFL, there's many different styles of offense out there. There's the West Coast. You've got the spread offenses that you see coming out of college. That obviously Clinsbury has brought into the NFL and proliferated. Is there any one that you would say that you find to be the most common as far as base play selection and how successful they are in the NFL? Because I've said multiple times to people when talking about how to be successful, and it's in my opinion, stemming from, I'm sure, a team that you can be quite familiar with and found enjoyment in, the Niners. The proliferation of the West Coast offense stemming from those mid 80s, early 90s Niners teams. I think that influenced more offenses in today's game than pretty much any other. Is that something that you've ever noticed or thought about?
I mean, I probably thought about it on a surface level. I would say that I don't necessarily pigeonhole it to say, like, rank it like, okay, West Coast is by far the most dominant used right now. I really think that the best offenses are really kind of combinations, amalgamations of all those offenses. So elements of spread, elements of RPO, elements of heavy play action, elements of air raid. And I think you can see that in, I think of it more maybe from a different lens as far as when I think different offenses, I don't really care what they call their plays. Like if they use West Coast terminology,
Sure.
I'm looking for more of like, what is their identity scheme wise? Are they a zone running team? You know, are they running wide zone like, you know, the 49ers and the Rams and that tree of coaches? Or are they more gap oriented? Are they running power? You know, are they trying to get downhill like those types of types of run schemes? And then off that, are they more spready or are they more play action chunk? You know, how do they throw the ball naturally? What's the quarterback most comfortable doing? And so how those things are packaged together to me is a little bit more interesting than necessarily saying like, hey, you know, I don't think a whole lot of teams are running true old school West Coast like the Niners in the 80s. You know, they're just not. You know, you don't see any of those formations anymore with those two backs and the quarterback under center. They're all kind of blurred, you know, shotgun run, quarterback run game, play action under center, move the pocket, move the launch point, you know, different ways to take advantage of what that looks like. And to me, I think that's the most exciting part. Everybody has the same plays, especially in the league. You want to talk about the league now, damn near everybody has the same plays. They certainly have access to all the same information. And so what you choose to do with your personnel and their strengths is really the sweet spot offensively. Now, that goes without saying that you have to have the personnel to do it, right? Like no one's going to be successful in the league without a quarterback and a strong franchise quarterback. But let's just assume that the baseline is there. It's all kind of that interesting, like, you know, what are they doing? Where's their identity? Are they an RPO team? Are they a wide zone team? Because all those things take significant amount of time. You know, you are what you spend your time doing. If we could go look at the practice schedule for all these teams, we could tell really quickly, like, what is their identity as far as what type of running team are they? What type of passing team are they? Where can they hang their hat as far as their talent? Or are they in scramble mode? You know, and they don't have anybody at anything. And then it's a cluster garbage can dumpster fire, which we're seeing, you know, today with all sorts of, you know, hirings and firings.
No doubt, no doubt. Now back to, you know, watching the film aspect for some of our listeners who aren't super familiar with the, you know, with the just the concept or just doing it, period. Do you have steps that you look at when I mean, you do a lot of obviously play breakdowns for YouTube and Patreon. Do you have like steps? Do you do like a step-by-step thing as far as how you watch it? Like maybe, okay, the defense is in this game, personnel wise. How do you layer that if you do?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. And I know a great website that offers a free film guide available. I will try to do it off the top of my head. I think it depends on why I'm doing it, first of all. You know, if I'm doing it just for the channel, I'll bounce around and do whatever. If I'm doing it to play, you know, to me, quarterback wise, is so much of it is based off what the shell of the defense is. So that means what the, you know, safety roof is doing. And most oftentimes that's open, closed type of mindset as far as what those safeties are doing. From there, playing wise, I was always interested. Yeah. Does this look like pressure? You know, if there's pressure, I want to know about it immediately because I want to make sure that I'm sound or I know where I'm hot or I know what my side adjust issues are based on the protection. And then it will go to, you know, what's going on in the perimeter? You know, do I have a matchup issue? What's a corner? Is it pressed? Is it off? And then maybe at the end of the day, you know, depending on if it's prevalent, you know, what's the front? You know, sometimes it really matters for the quarterback. If you're identifying the mic every single play, you certainly need to know what the front is. But there's a lot of teams that don't make you do that. And so it doesn't matter if it's, you know, odd, even, over, under. But as far as if I'm coaching, I certainly want to know, it's basically the opposite. I really start with how they're setting their front. You know, if I can tell which way they're setting their front, either to the strength, to the field, to the boundary, to our strength, to our passing strength, those types of things then dictate usually what's going on in the back end as far as the coverage. And so for me, it's really dependent on, you know, what the role is that I'm watching the film, if at all.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. I want to get a little more, I guess, not as much behind the curtain kind of with you. Let's go more surface level. What coach do you think influenced you the most in your career?
Well, I mean, definitely my father growing up, you know, he was coaching me. He was my youth coach, you know, up until probably high school and damn near everything, whether assistant coach or manager or whatever. And so certainly his approach to the game, to basically all athletics, he loved baseball as much as anything. And so the thing that I took from him and that I try to install with my kids is not necessarily to push them to any one sport, but he was always available. So he used to say, if you want to go practice anything, I'll go practice it with you. So he could barely throw a football, but we'd go out there and he'd catch spots for me and, do that for years. He'd go out there and throw batting practice. He'd go, shag rebounds for me. And so that aspect of just being available to do whatever they want to do while promoting athletics, I think was one of the most important things about that relationship for me with my pops in athletics. From actual football coaches, I got really lucky, man. I had a bunch of great coaches along the entire way. I'm sure most people who are fortunate enough to have a long career in football will say similar stuff. My high school coach was a quarterback at the same university that I went to. So I went to a Division II school in Northern California, UC Davis. So he was a Davis quarterback. And then my college coach was a Davis quarterback. So I basically had 9 years of quarterback coaching from the same tree and ran the same basically scheme for 9 years of my first real competitive ball. From there in the league, I really had two main influences. I would say Mike McCarthy was my offense coordinator the first 3 years in the league with the New Orleans at the time. He certainly taught me pro ball at that level, and the kind of detail and volume that goes in with the level of preparation, whether it's scheme, et cetera, play calling, all those types of things about, playing quarterback at that level. And then the guy who gave me my second really phase of my career was Mike Martz. And Mike's got a unique reputation as being a bit of a mad scientist. And there certainly are elements of that I think he intentionally plays up, but he's a very sharp guy. Both those guys are very sharp. And, they taught me a great deal about not only playing the position, but what the role looks like in the locker room, what the role looks like for an organization, what that role looks like as far as setting yourself up to do whatever you want to do afterwards. And so just trying to soak up as much information, whether it was, direct or whether he was maybe coaching through someone else or coaching a coach, all of those things to me, I try to just act as a sponge because you are around so many great players. That's not discounting, I was with New England for a couple months and you get a chance to sit in a team room with Bill Belichick. Those are magical, scary moments for a lot of people. And so, you try to take what can be applicable to you and your understanding of ball and whatever you do with it next. But, when I'm coaching a high school team, am I trying to beat Bill Belichick? Hell no. Right. You got to find that sweet spot for what works for you. But to say that you're not going to learn everything you possibly could from those experiences, you're missing the boat probably a little bit. But I got really lucky with those two, Mike Martz and Mike McCarthy for sure.
On the same token, was there any players that kind of helped guide you along the way? I mean, you were in quite a few quarterback rooms, with some, very talented people. The NFL sometimes gives out this vibe of it's a dog, got to protect my job in a sense, but at least from the outside looking in. But did you have any that really helped you guide the way for you?
Yeah. And it is, don't get it twisted. Okay. It is. But there's also a lot of really good humans and people. And so probably the one that made the biggest impact for me was a guy named Jake Delhomme. He was, if you know Jake at all, he was the number 2 when I was in New Orleans, drafted there. And so he was the backup the first year. Then he went to Carolina, went to Super Bowl, et cetera. But great dude, good old boy, really taught me how to learn NFL offense or that offense when we were in New Orleans, and just did a great job of just being a good human. We were, essentially competing for snaps, but I wasn't going to take his job that year. Right. But, we're all playing the same position. There's only one out there. So I do get that element of it. But he was always, first class. And that's always how I tried to model it. I was probably never as good a player as he was, certainly didn't get to the Super Bowl, those types of things. But the idea of just how he treated everyone in the building, from, hey, you need to make sure that you meet the equipment guy the first day that you come in. You need to take care of the equipment people, the managers, you need to take care of the trainers, you need to take care of the ball boys, stuff like that as a Division II guy, I was like, what? We got ball boys? What? It's just different. And so that certainly was there. I think the other guy that jumps to the forefront, there were a bunch of them, but the other guy that jumps to the forefront was Brad Johnson. Yeah. Brad's the bull he's a good dude. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you love that. He's got some serious trick shots that he's pretty good at. He's a great competitor too. I got some unbelievable bull competitor stories, but he was another guy that I just really admired how he interacted with people. Now, I certainly loved how he played the game too. He was a big time capital A anticipation guy. He would let that ball go early. I always appreciated that and felt like I could, take some of that to my game, and just enjoyed watching how he went about it, because he was a true kind of pros pro, but quirky all at the same time, like totally authentically himself. And I love that part of it.
It feels a little when you're talking about him, feels a little like Fitzpatrick in my opinion. Like, maybe not necessarily the most gifted of all the passers, but high level processing skills.
Yeah, I don't know. I followed Fitzpatrick a few different places. We never overlapped anywhere. I will say this about the Bull, and no offense to Ryan, I don't know him at all, but I will say that to me, another element of quarterbacking in the league that I always look at is, and this is really any player, is do you elevate the room?
Sure.
Okay, so like, do the other players, when they get an opportunity to play, are they better because of you?
Right.
And that's not the case for many people. And it is, you acknowledge the cutthroat element of it, and that's the truth. I would hope that, not that I had a significant amount to do with most of the rooms that I was with, but I always tried to elevate the room. And I got that from Brad. And if you look across the landscape of the league, that's not always the case. And, sometimes you have to kind of read between the lines. But if you look across and follow certain people's careers about, has that always been the case? Or have they always kind of not necessarily go out there and do enough to get to the next contract, but are they elevating the position, the offense, the side of the ball, the organization, all in the right direction? That was something that I really took from the Bull, from Brad Johnson and Jake, to be able to kind of use as a model.
Okay. Now I got to ask you, because just a little fanboy thing for me. Phillip Rivers is one of my favorite players of all time, and I know you did. He just straight up is. I know you spent some time with the Chargers. I got to know, what was he like? If you had many interactions with him, what was he like?
He's exactly like you would think he is. He's the same dude all the time. He never stops doing that. He would probably he's probably more competitive than I probably would have get. I mean, obviously everyone's competitive,
right?
But he does. I will say, for a long time in the league, there was, I would say, a number of quarterbacks that maybe the other quarterbacks weren't necessarily huge fans of. You could probably, like, it wouldn't be that hard to figure out what that list looked like. And I think for many guys in the league, I don't want to speak for many, but I will say, just the perception looking outside in, Phillip was one of those guys for me, just because I remember watching him like jaw with Jay Cutler, like on the sideline, and just was like, and it was just weird. It just wasn't like, it just wasn't like anything else you were seeing at that time in the league.
Right.
And so it was just like, what is this guy's like a cornball? He doesn't swear. Like, what's up with this? Like, is this a facade? He's got 10 kids, like, what's the deal here? And then getting out there and getting a chance to work with him and see him operate. First of all, he's a monster. He's big. He's huge. The next thing is he spins it, and he doesn't, it's not the cleanest motion by any means, but the way he spins it and what he does with the ball and the ball control and the way it comes out, and his understanding and his mastery of what we were doing with what Norv was running out there, was as good as I've ever seen. His preparation was world class. His relationship with Nick Hardwick, the center out there, how we would meet quarterbacks and centers, and how they would work together to solve problems at the line of scrimmage, as good as I've ever seen. When I was there for half of a season, we were never hot. They did not throw hot.
Right.
They didn't talk about it, because he and Nick could solve it at the line of scrimmage. It didn't register, because I wasn't used to operating like that. I was like, this is a different model than I'm used to processing, but these guys could handle it and do it at a really high level. And it was just fun to see. And he totally, exceeded all expectations, preconceived ideas that I came in there with. I think he's just a world-class dude. And,
that makes me happy. That makes me happy there. I had to take a shot at that one. I had to know for sure. Cause like you said, everybody has their different opinions on him. Yeah. I still, one of my favorite ones to hit the 90 not something yards. He's yelling at and right in the Jaguars player's face. And he was amazing. I miss watching him play. That's for sure. Yeah. So Brian, you got anything to hit? Sorry, I'm just caught up in a moment. Brian, you got you got something?
I just want to pile on to just, what was your favorite team to play for? Favorite season, maybe?
Ooh, favorite season. My favorite season was probably the 2009 Bengals, which is a interesting year. But we won the division. We went 6-0 in the division. I think that might have been the Hard Knocks year. I forget what year it was Hard Knocks, 09 or 10. But it was really just, for me, it was a sweet spot career wise, because I really enjoyed the dudes on that team. No offense to Cincinnati, the other Sin City. It's not, I obviously don't love it. I don't live there right now, but I enjoyed my time there. Lived in a cool spot. All the guys on the team felt like we were all kind of in the same spot life-wise, like young families. There were certainly dudes still running the town, having a good time, but the vast majority of us felt like we were on the more mature side of the life cycle of the league, and just enjoyed each other. I enjoyed that locker room. I enjoyed that quarterback room with the Palmer brothers. And it was just it obviously helps to win always, but it was, that was probably my favorite full year experience as far as group of guys and winning and having a good time. Then we got smoked twice by the Jets to finish the season, but Revis Island was hard one to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are some really, really good Jets teams. Now looking back, you're obviously still a fan now. You're still watching. What's the biggest difference? Because you've been out of the NFL, I think, 10 years at this point, roughly or so. Sure. Yeah. What's the biggest change in style that you see currently? Maybe some new terminology or new. We got Patrick Mahomes throwing passes across his body, and it's no look passes and stuff. Is there like a massive shift in how the game is played compared to what it was 10 years ago?
For sure. I mean, yes and no. So like a good example is, I was in Green Bay for a while, and Brett Favre used to throw no look passes every single day.
Yeah.
And he didn't throw them a lot in the game, but he certainly did throw some in the game, because he would celebrate and let you know about it. But he was, those types of things aren't new. I think the way that the quarterback is protected has changed the game. And so you can get away with a lot of those, acrobatic throws across your body, because you're not worried about, getting smoked sideways or leaving that ball high and, having your receiver get decapitated. The target zone for all the hitting and all the safety elements, which in my opinion is very good, but it has changed the game. And it's allowed for a little bit looser, more open of a game that certainly is offensive friendly. And so I think that all those things make the game different, but at the core elements, at the end of the day, they're still the same. It's still, blocking, tackling, protecting the football, being smart, being explosive on the perimeter, all those types of things that go into playing football at a really high level. But man, yeah, do I wish I could play nowadays? Hell yeah. I wish when I would throw it across my body, I'd get, MF'd for the next, 2 weeks. Or now, you feel like you're
on Sports Center, top 10. Yeah. Right.
It's everybody too. It's not just Patrick Mahomes. It's everybody doing it, because they're taking advantage of space and, the rigid element of the old school dogma about, must happen like this, must happen like that, has evolved. And similar to how the RPO has come into the game, it's stretched defenses horizontally, vertically in new ways, and created new stress and new space to be able to have offenses attack. And so it's the other part about it is, now with all these great athletes playing quarterback, some of us might not have been, good enough athletes to play quarterback if we started nowadays. So
sure.
Sweet spot as far as timing.
Do you have any?
The RPO offense is definitely the thing in the NFL that I think is the weirdest when you think back 30, 40 years ago. Like the 85 Bears, how would they have dealt with an RPO offense? You know what I mean? You're running and you're trying to run straight forward, and you're bringing all this pressure up the A gaps, and dudes just stepping back and slinging it out to the sidelines, every play just to avoid the rush. It's such an effective way of offenses to operate, and I wonder where league would have been if this could have been adopted earlier. Like a player that I think of that gets hyped up because of his name is Tim Tebow. But if you would have brought more elements of what he did in college in earlier, who knows, right? I mean, it's a lot of those things. I think about college and the different things you can bring in. I'm not saying Tebow becomes the superstar. I'm just saying that it's interesting to see how some of these things they brought in from college have just dominated. Like Lamar Jackson's an MVP because of it. You know, so a lot of
Yeah,
those
no,
things is what I think about.
I think you're right. I think it would be hard for a guy. I don't want to pile on Tebow, but he just didn't. He doesn't throw it well enough. That's the reality. When you condense the hashes, and and you go to 6-yard hashes as opposed to college hashes, it makes every throw kind of medium difficulty. There's no short boundary side throw that you can just flip it out there.
Yep.
Certainly, the RPO thing has created different stresses on a defense. One of the ways, probably the easiest way to beat RPO teams is to do what the old school Bears used to do and just say, hey, we're going to load the box. We're going to play man on the outside and give you 2 middle fingers, and you better see if you can beat us.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot harder nowadays because the game is so much wider. It's not as much everybody in a phone booth. It's the spread element that if you miss a tackle in space, it's a first down. If you miss 2 tackles, it's to the house. And at the lower levels of football, you see so many more big plays nowadays, or even in the league, you see more probably big plays than normal, just because the space is so much. It's such a premium nowadays, as opposed to thinking back in the day, maybe when I first came in the league, where it was, I right, downhill, lead. You're just not going to do that anymore because there's more efficient ways to attack a defense. And I think it's a combination of metrics, analytics, playmakers, rule changes, all of the above to make the game. I think the game is a hell of a lot better and more fun to watch.
Oh, absolutely. That's cover 0, all out blitz, right up the A gap with the double fingers going to the double birds. The Eli Manning birds coming out at you.
Oh, JT loves cover 0. That's his favorite. That's his favorite defense to play against. He said it.
Man, I'm pretty sure we've shown the positives of those and the negatives of those. Like, we've shown how, like, wow, defense created a turnover just by doing this, and then at the same time, oh wow, we showed an offense or defenses get completely torched by it.
Oh, absolutely.
Nobody over top. So
absolutely.
I love to live and die. They live and die by the blitz. God bless them.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, I want to give you an opportunity. If you have anything else to ask for, I'm pretty satisfied on my end, my man. If you got any more questions for him.
Yeah, the only other thing I have to ask is, did you know about the mascot change when you left college? Do you know this? When you left UC Davis, do you know about the mascot change?
What's the mascot change?
Okay,
what's an Aggie?
Short for agriculture, right? It's a nickname for agriculture. Okay. I did get that.
Okay.
I saw that when you were playing there, they had a mascot named Ollie. Do you remember that? Ollie the Mustang?
Okay, sort of. I remember like a blue horse.
Yes. So back in the day, they had a real horse, and when you were in college, the mascot's name was Ollie, and I was gonna see if you knew what they changed the name to.
No, I think they went old school. They reverted back to the old school logo now.
He does know. I wasn't sure. I was like,
yeah, no, I'm not. I need some new gear. So.
Hook them up.
I host a draft podcast, and we're going to be gearing up kind of soon here. And I wanted to just get your just a quick backstory on what it was like going through that whole process, being Division II, maybe not knowing exactly where your life was going to lead you, but just a quick synopsis of what that felt like. Because I don't want to give up this opportunity of having someone that went the hard way. You had the hard road, and I love that. Those are my favorite stories.
Yeah, it was a combination of a number of different things. So yeah, Division II non-scholarship, got a chance to have a great college career for a really storied program, and all of a sudden, I realized that there's a good chance that I'm going to be drafted, and kind of prepared for it my entire senior year, for what that looks like, just as far as seeing what the grades were coming into that year. And then basically going through the process of, finding an agent, interviewing agents, training for the combine, going to the combine, playing in all-star games. And that was before really, you had kind of these gurus in the space as far as dudes like Jordan, Palmer, guys like you could go and do the full encompass camp thing to prepare for your pro day. Didn't really have that. Just kind of train for the combine and train for the pro day, and just try to do your absolute best. It's certainly a surreal process going to Indy for the combine and what that looks like as far as Yeah, I went from the hotel to the old stadium. But
Oh
just
yeah, RCA
it's,
Dome. Yeah.
yeah, it's an intense process, and it was fun. It was stimulating. I remember I couldn't sleep at the combine just because you're so jacked up on, you just got done. I remember sitting in a room. I sat on a round table with, I want to say, Bill Parcells, John Gruden, Sean Payton. It was a round table of like, just, I remember thinking like, God, these guys are all great, and they're peppering me with questions like how to read stick, just stuff I can't imagine they care about. But the it was surreal. And then to actually get drafted, it was great. But unless you're the first pick, you're going to be pissed. And I had 185 reasons to be pissed. For not that I thought I deserved to be the number one pick, but I certainly thought I was better than some of the guys that got drafted ahead of me.
Right.
And so, making sense of that and just seeing dollar signs, like click away, as you get lower and lower, and those are real life implications. And so that part of it, but then the other part of it that I think is really important that I always tell guys that are going through the process, there's a bunch of guys going through it right now. The drafted part is just the first part. Like, yeah, it's a great experience. Like, it's a 1-day celebration or 2-day celebration for you. But then the real work comes. Like, you're trying to take a grown man's job, probably someone who's really good at their job, and you are the new person, and have never done this before. And so it's a different mentality. And so I always felt that I, use that time to celebrate for a hot second, and then really jump right into it 2 feet into making sure that this thing wasn't a one camp wonder, that I wanted to get a decade out of this thing and do exactly what I needed to. And so there's a fine line between celebrating it, but also realizing that it's the first step. It is really the first step in a long journey, hopefully. And so I think that always helps to have that approach.
I love hearing the chips. I love hearing about people that like they're still pissed off. Historically,
Everybody is.
Yeah. Well, Drew Brees went on the Dan Patrick Show a couple of years ago in the lead up to the Super Bowl and went on, and they read off his negative scouting reports, all the reasons why he sucks. And he took that piece of paper that Dan was reading off of for the interview, and he asked, can I take that? He goes, yeah, go ahead. And he took it, and he keeps it somewhere. Obviously now he's retired, so he don't care, but I'm thinking about that. I'm like, the dude's the most prolific passer in the NFL, and he's still finding motivation. And so it's cool to hear that. Where were you when you were drafted? What do you remember?
Yeah, I was in my college apartment with my parents. I was pissed. I had actually just woken up from a nap. I had to go to sleep. I was just like, I couldn't handle watching any more of these guys get drafted ahead of me. And so I just went in my room by myself, fell asleep for a second, and then got woken up from a call from the Saints. And it was glad it was over.
You had to put up with the all day affair. You didn't get to have it broken up.
It was 2 days, but it was like, it was, I think it was the first through third rounds, and then fourth through whatever. And I was the 6th round. So it felt like I was through like a 15-round fight. I was just, I was ready to move on, but I did want to celebrate it. And I was glad I was just exhausted, just the whole process at that point.
That's awesome. The way that you just like, even the little like negative things, is part of the story.
Sure.
Like things are like, you got annoyed because you're not being. I feel that. That's me. Although I don't get drafted at the end of the story. I don't have a long 10-year career.
No.
That's the biggest difference.
Well, JT, man, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, man. We had a blast. We learned a ton, from you. This is a good time. Seriously, we don't get to talk to, people who've earned a paycheck in the National Football League very often. It's really cool. Again, love the channel. I'm subscribed to the Patreon. I've never regretted spending money on it. It's wonderful. For our listeners who, aren't familiar with your brand, they should be. Where could they find you at?
I definitely channel people through the YouTube channel, the Quarterback School, but then I try to stay active on Twitter. I think I actually just changed my name on Twitter. What the hell is it? It's the Quarterback School. Used to have a bunch of ridiculous underscores through it. Frustrating. And then I do the Patreon community, which is kind of a deep dive, try to create the environment of what it's like in an NFL quarterback room. And then finally, the thing that I'm having more fun with than almost anything are the courses, and just trying to create courses for really deep dives on things that I really want to give back to that quarterback community that I can't get across in a simple one-off video. So have a handful of different courses, RPO, pass protection, tempos, how to beat every coverage course, and now I'm putting together a full offense. So pretty excited to share what we've been running at the high school level that I think will be really transferable, across a bunch of different levels of football.
Very cool. We're looking forward to it. Yes, listeners, please go check it out. It is well worth your time and your dollar. JT, once again, thank you so much, man. It was a blast, and we're all wrapped up here. Listeners, thank you so much. And on behalf of JT, Brian, and I, till next time, the 2 Point Conversation is good.